It all started with one sentence that cut through me like a knife. "You make too many rules for someone who's not even blood." My stepdaughter said it, but it was my stepson's silence that hit me harder. I remember just standing there, frozen, wondering how years of trying to build a family had come down to this. I didn't even know what to say. Have you ever given your whole heart to someone who constantly reminds you that you don't belong? Because that's what it felt like. I stood there thinking, was I really being too strict? Or were they just refusing to see me as family? Tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you have done the same? When I married Mark, I knew he came with 2 kids, 14-year-old Ethan and 11-year-old Sophie. Their mother had passed away 3 years before we met, and I never wanted to replace her. I just wanted to help build a safe, loving home again. Mark was kind, patient, and hopeful that his kids would eventually accept me. The first few months were polite but distant. I didn't mind. Grief takes time, and I respected that. But as months turned into a year, the distance grew wider. It wasn't hatred. It was worse, indifference. They treated me like a visitor who had overstayed her welcome. I did everything I could to make the house feel like a home. I cooked their favorite meals, remembered birthdays, helped with school projects, and attended every single parent-teacher conference. But no matter what I did, I was always her. Never mom. Never family. One evening, while setting the dinner table, I overheard Ethan telling Sophie, "We don't have to listen to her. She's not even blood." It felt like my heart cracked a little. I didn't say anything though. I just kept my head down, pretending not to hear. The breaking point came a few months later. I had introduced a few basic house rules. Nothing crazy. Things like no phones at the dinner table, cleaning up after themselves, and respecting curfew. These were the same rules I had for my own 2 kids, Emily and Josh, from my first marriage. But that day, Ethan stood up during dinner and shouted, "You make too many rules for someone who's not even blood." The room fell silent. My fork clattered onto the plate. Mark looked like he wanted to disappear. I stared at Ethan, trying to understand how we got here. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just took a deep breath and said, "If that's how you feel, then fine. I'll stop making rules. You can live however you want." Ethan stormed off. Sophie followed him, and I excused myself from the table. Mark tried to comfort me later, saying, "They're just kids. They don't mean it." But the truth is, sometimes kids mean exactly what they say. They just don't realize the weight of their words. The next few weeks were chaos. Without rules, the house became a mess. Dishes piled up, laundry overflowed, and bedtime became optional. They skipped school assignments and stayed glued to their phones. I didn't say a word. I treated them like roommates, not kids. I stopped waking them for school, stopped reminding them about chores, stopped cooking for them. I simply focused on Emily and Josh. I made breakfast for my kids, packed their lunches, and we'd sit together at the table, while Ethan and Sophie scrolled through their phones, complaining there was no food. When Ethan said, "Why didn't you make pancakes?" I calmly replied, "I don't make rules for people who aren't my blood, remember?" His face went pale. Sophie looked away, ashamed. Mark didn't say anything, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between us grew colder. I could feel tension buzzing in every corner of the house. My kids tried to bridge the gap. Emily offered to help Sophie with homework. Josh invited Ethan to play basketball, but they declined every time. One night Mark confronted me. "You're being too harsh," he said. "They're kids. They're hurting." I looked at him and said softly, "So am I." I still remember the night everything changed. Ethan came home late, well past midnight. He thought I'd be asleep, but I was waiting in the living room. "Where were you?" I asked calmly. "Out," he said, brushing past me. "You didn't call. You didn't text. You could have been hurt." He turned around, anger flashing in his eyes. Why do you care? You're not my mom. That broke me. But instead of crying, I simply said, "You're right. I'm not your mom. I'm just someone who tried to care." He froze. For the first time, he looked scared. Not of me, but of what he'd said. I walked past him and went to bed. The next morning, Ethan didn't come out of his room. Neither did Sophie. The silence was deafening. 2 days later, Mark told me Ethan had asked to stay with his grandparents for a while. My heart sank, but I didn't stop him. Maybe space was what he needed. Maybe it was what we all needed. But when he left, he didn't say goodbye. Just a quiet slam of the door. Weeks passed. The house felt emptier than ever. I missed the chaos, the noise, even the arguments. Sophie eventually started spending more time with me, helping in the kitchen, asking for help with homework, even sitting beside me during movie nights. One night, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I asked, "For what?" She said, "For saying you're not family." "You are." I hugged her, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Thank you," I whispered back. Then one evening, the doorbell rang. It was Ethan. He looked thinner, quieter. He stood there awkwardly with his hands in his pockets. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded. We sat in the living room for a few minutes, the silence stretching between us. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry for what I said." My throat tightened, but I stayed quiet. "I didn't mean it," he continued. "You were just trying to help. I was mad, and I wanted to hurt you, but I shouldn't have." I smiled sadly. "Ethan, I never wanted to replace your mom. I just wanted us to be a family. But family isn't blood. It's effort, love, and time. I gave all three, even when it hurt." He nodded, eyes brimming with tears. "Can we start over?" he asked softly. That night, we had dinner together as a family, all of us. The same table that once felt divided, now felt whole. There were still unspoken things, scars that time would need to heal. But there was peace. You know, when people say, blood is thicker than water, they forget that sometimes love is thicker than blood. I didn't gain stepchildren. I gained a second chance to show that love can rebuild what pain tries to destroy. So tell me, was I wrong to step back and let them see for themselves what it means to have someone who cares? What would you have done if you were in my place? If you felt for me, if you think I did the right thing, then like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it today, and subscribe for more stories like this. I'll see you all in the next story.